Public Relations. Edward L. Bernays. 1945. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Part 1. The Growth of Public Relations. 11. The Era of Integration, 1941 to 1951. In World War II, the emphasis in public relations was, as in World War I, on winning the war. But since 1917, public relations had developed new methods and techniques. The orientation of the public was different, too. Many factors had to be considered in these new activities and approaches to the public. Technical tools had still further speeded up communication: radio, sound film, air travel. The United States was fighting totalitarian states: Germany, Italy, Japan. These conditions allowed government public relations to make a far greater impact than during the earlier war. The Office of War Information in this country and the thousands of public relations offices in the armed services provided machinery to carry forward the basic ideas. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was a master public relations technician who realized the potency of words in fireside chats and understood the drama of events spread through the new media. He stressed the crusade of democracy and played the outstanding role in rallying the peoples of the free world behind him. The years of the Depression had made the public more aware of the force and power of its own opinions, and the legislation of the New Deal and the Democratic administration preceding the war provided the groundwork for public support of Roosevelt's policies. Prime Minister Winston Churchill was a master of words, too. Both he and Roosevelt placed too great an emphasis on words, not always supported by an integrated and coordinated plan of deeds, but startling pronouncements and dramatic meetings helped maintain the morale of the public and keynoted the public relations strategy. The Atlantic Charter, for instance, dramatized the four freedoms. The Casablanca Conference gave the war new values with the demand for the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany and the liberation of oppressed peoples. Business adapted itself more readily and effectively to the needs of World War II than it had to those of World War I. During the Depression, belief in the coincidence of public and private business had made great headway. In aiding the war effort, the public carried this new idea forward in deed and word. Even before the close of the war, great private and public groups, trade and professional associations, and industry initiated activities to ensure their more effective adjustment to the post-war world. Many of our clients, of the most diverse sorts, asked us to make evaluating studies as a basis for their behavior and adjustment. Organizations recognized that they needed to act in the public interest, and we were kept busy with many such approaches to the new kind of social engineering. But some of the important constituent parts of our society did not take this approach. Many maladjustments still were manifest immediately after the war. In one vital field, industrial relations between management and men, maladjustments flared up in devastating labor difficulties and strikes. The findings of such individuals as Elton Mayo were apparently neither studied nor used. The situation was a challenge to public relations. What could industry do to correct post-war maladjustments? And what could public relations do to help industry integrate itself with society at this juncture? Our own organization's approach to a national problem in a period when the general breakdown of precautionary precepts following victory in Europe threatened progress at home took the form of a full-page advertisement in the New York Times of December 3, 1946. It is quoted in spite of the fact that it is ours, rather than because it is ours. We attempted to clarify industry's problem and to describe public relations in the latest phase of its development. We indicated the role that the social sciences play in human relationships today, analyzed the functions of the modern Public Relations Council, and outlined a guide for organizations interested in engaging Public Relations Council, describing the standards that the public relations profession had achieved. Strikes, our statement pointed out, were only a visible part of the post-war pattern of maladjustments. And they were a small part, like the tops of icebergs that show above water. Strikes were dramatic. They were dominating all discussion of industry's human relationships because the United States had lost 120 million man-days of production in the first year after VJ Day. Industry necessarily has many other difficulties in human relationships with workers, stockholders, retailers, distributors, government, and consumers, our statement continued. It must maintain goodwill for its reputation and products with all its publics. Industry could run much more smoothly if it used the powerful tools of the science of human relations to minimize friction and improve its group relationships. Emphasizing that industry has brilliantly applied the physical sciences, we suggested that the social sciences can serve industry's human relationships in the same way that physical sciences serve industry's technological progress. How can industry harness this knowledge? By using the objective, independent judgment of the modern technician in social sciences, the Public Relations Council, who is qualified by education, professional training, and experience to apply science to practical problems. The modern public relations counsel, our statement said, 1. Analyzes his client and the publics on which his client is dependent, 2. Uncovers causes of maladjustments and misunderstandings, and 3. Advises courses of action to improve the entire relationship of his client with the public. The Public Relations Counsel, we pointed out, is often asked to meet specific problems or crisis situations. More often he is retained on a continuing basis to help guide the public relations policies and practices of the business. Faced with today's incredibly complex public relationships, the executive needs professional advice in this field just as he needs a lawyer or an engineer. But how can the executive decide which public relations organization or man is best qualified for his needs? The problem, which points up all that follows in the next several paragraphs, is of achieving public relations counsel, principles, and goals which overlook immediate questions of gain and view company or individual progress in relation to long-term values which in the end may turn out to be in the best interest of society. It is difficult for the average businessman to differentiate between the publicity man, the press agent, and the counsel on public relations. It is difficult for him to evaluate the soundness or unsoundness of the public relations counsel's methods, or to judge the effectiveness of his operations, since professional standards in this field are not set by the state, as in the case of other professions. But there are certain steps the executive can take to assure himself of getting adequate public relations service. And so our statement concluded with the following guide for organizations interested in engaging public relations counsel. 1. To make sure of integrity and probity, ask for and evaluate personal references. 2. To determine financial and credit standing, ask for bank references and consult Dun & Bradstreet or some other responsible credit organization. 3. To judge performance, consult officials of major communications media, newspaper and magazine publishers and editors, and radio executives. Consult present and former clients. 4. To ensure getting seasoned judgment and wisdom, ask for and study the biographies of the principals of the public relations organization being considered. The knowledge required to perform the intricate work demands high educational background and continuity in the profession. In the period immediately following World War II, spokesmen for business were proclaiming that, if all the new and complex interrelationships were to be met effectively, industry's first job was public relations. The requirements of the time thus led to a tremendous growth of public relations. That growth will be indicated in Chapter 13, which surveys the field as it exists today. The phenomenal increase in the number of public relations practitioners, the rise of professional associations of public relations men, the rapid development of literature on public relations, including books, magazines, and bibliographies, the steady increase of university courses devoted to public relations and allied subjects, the continuous active study that the social sciences are making of public relations, the recognition of the field by authoritative publications like the Encyclopaedia Britannica and the Encyclopedia of the Social Sciences, the wide acceptance of public relations by business, industry, government, finance, labor, art, literature, science, medicine, education, and other segments of American life, and the spread of the public relations profession to various European countries. All this immense progress has taken place in the past decade. Amidst this rapid and continuous growth of public relations, however, certain problems remain to be solved. One difficulty became apparent immediately after World War II: finding qualified men and women to aid in unraveling and solving the new public relations problems that had been intensified by war displacements. While defense forces had returned thousands of public relations officers, they were not trained to deal with the new and complex problems of industry in this period. And the civilian economy had not trained enough public relations experts for industry's needs. Calling attention to the importance of public relations for industry, we pointed out prevailing inadequacies in meeting this need. A full-page announcement that was published in the New York Times of December 12, 1947, said, "Business expends great sums of money on public relations today. But public relations is still so relatively new that few businesses have set up systematic methods to gauge the efficiency of their operations in this field. Industrial engineers check manufacturing processes. Accountants evaluate fiscal practices. Independent market researchers determine distribution. Opinion polling organizations measure mass attitudes. In their public relations activities, however, businesses do not generally apply the modern method of independent expert appraisal. They have neither the specialized knowledge nor the personnel to appraise their public relations programs and practices expertly and objectively. The fact is that even toward the close of the 1940s, there was widespread confusion about public relations. Many public relations men misunderstood and misused the term public relations. And, in the academic world, scholars and students of public relations and related subjects were confused about the correct interpretation of the term. I had occasion to test this general confusion about public relations in 1948 in a course I gave at New York University. I opened my lectures by asking my students, all of them juniors or seniors, to tell me what they thought public relations is. Each student was requested to give his definition of the term. Here are 25 of these student definitions. 1. Public relations are those activities which create favorable opinions toward products, ideas, or persons to the eventual end of making them more saleable. 2. Public relations includes the analysis of a situation between people, institutions, or groups of the public with a view to improving the situation. 3. Public relations is a liaison which promotes goodwill between the people and an industry. 4. Public relations is the art and science of placing before people the person or the product you represent in the most favorable light. 5. Public relations is an activity aimed at more sales. 6. Public relations creates an awareness of our fellow men. 7. Public relations is the promotion and maintenance of goodwill of the public for persons who want to sell their products, institutions, or whatever may be. 8. Public relations is an activity dealing with personal and impersonal contacts among individuals in society. 9. Public relations is a combination of all the activities involved in representing an organization to the public in the most favorable light. 10. Public relations is an activity that concerns itself with the promotion of an idea, company, etc., to result in sales. 11. I know public relations concerns meeting people, but I cannot describe it. 12. Somehow public relations conveys the picture of high-pressure salesman, it is wholly salesmanship. 13. Public relations is the ability of a representative in that field to sell himself and his ideas to the public. 14. Public relations is the survey of human needs and wants, likes and dislikes, and the utilization of that knowledge and information for an intelligent and successful functioning of a group, an organization, or an institution in its relations with the people. 15. Public relations is the promotion of goodwill. 16. Public relations is a field incorporating knowledge of human beings and their gullibility. It uses this knowledge to further a particular end product. 17. Public relations is a means by which an individual impresses his personality or his product on others in a socially useful manner. 18. The Army definition of public relations is to inform the whole world about the material, the units, and the personnel of the Army. I don't know what the civilian aspects of public relations are. 19. Public relations is an art applied to business, the end result is sales. 20. Public relations is a phase of journalism, it is the art of getting along with people. 21. Public relations is finding out what groups of public will want a product and how to get that product over to them. 22. Public relations means bringing your firm to the public eye favorably. 23. Public relations is selling, it is salesmanship of an idea, a concern's idea or a church's or a baseball club's, it is gaining the goodwill of the public by selling them your concern. 24. Public relations is establishing the goodwill of a corporation, a firm, a person, toward all people it does business with. 25. A public relations man is a sort of go-between, a contact man between commercial enterprise or any enterprise and the general public. Molded by their environment, the students had formulated many common fallacies about public relations. The ideas they presented are shared by adults and, for that matter, by adults in responsible positions of business management. This was revealed in a study on public relations in business, the study of activities in large corporations, made in 1950 by Nugent Wedding, assistant professor of marketing in the University of Illinois. Professor Wedding's study showed that even those firms which now carry public relations activities need to clarify definition and nomenclature. This study undertook to find out how 85 American business firms in consumer goods, industry goods, railroads, public utilities, and banks practiced public relations. There was only a 35% acceptance of our definition. There were 16 categories of definition altogether, as indicated below, which proves the necessity of a coordinated and integrated approach to the problem of semantics and public relations. Over the years, other names have been suggested and often are used as synonymous with public relations: human relations, humanics, opinion management, social engineering, techniques of leadership, and engineering of consent. It is time that more people, especially group leaders and opinion molders, had a clear conception of the real meaning, scope, and aim of public relations. Public relations does not concern itself primarily with selling something to somebody or advertising something to someone. It is a field of theory and practice dealing with the relationships of people to the society on which they are dependent for their maintenance and growth. We live in a pluralistic society. There are many interests: economic, racial, social, and so on. If our competitive society had developed at an even rate, if everything had meshed itself into a pattern of perfection, we might not need public relations, because our interrelationships would be perfect. But in the flux of a democratic society there are maladjustments between individuals and groups, on the one hand, and society as a whole or sections of it on the other. In this society, public relations has emerged as a form of social statesmanship. The Public Relations Council's function is therefore 1. To define the social objectives of his client or to help him define it. 2. To find out what maladjustments there are between these objectives and the various elements in our society on which his client is dependent. These maladjustments may be distortions in the mind of the public that are due to misinformation, ignorance, or apathy, or they may be distortions that are due to unsound action on the part of the client. 3. To attempt to adjust the client's policies and actions to society so that the maladjustments may be resolved. 4. To advise the client on ways and means by which his new policies and actions, or old policies and actions, if it is deemed advisable to retain them, may be rendered comprehensible to the public. In The Responsibilities of Business Leadership, issued in 1948 by Harvard University Press, President Conan of Harvard is quoted as saying, "As never before, business needs men who appreciate the responsibilities of business to itself and to the unique society of free men which has been developed on this continent. Such men must understand not only the practical workings of business organizations, but also the economic and social climate in which business operates. They must be as well trained as our professional men in law and medicine." As Russell Davenport in his book USA, The Permanent Revolution, sums up the changed situation, we are slowly moving into the realm of reality in this field. The corporation's awareness of their responsibilities is indicated by the growth of public relations activities. Upwards of 4,000 companies are carrying out public relations programs. Many are hardly more than publicity campaigns, however. Good business public relations is good performance, publicly appreciated because adequately communicated. But while this societal and integrative approach to public relations has been growing steadily, those concerned with business and its use of public relations recognize that much still remains to be done in this direction. A survey of public relations made by Fortune magazine in its May 1949 issue, for example, was captioned "Business is still in trouble. Only good public relations, i.e., good performance that's understood and appreciated, will ensure its future." The most important problem business faces today, Fortune said, was the fact that business was not out of the doghouse yet. Every United States businessman was, consciously or unconsciously, on the defensive. Certain important advances had been made since the muckraking era. Elmo Roper, summarizing the public's opinion of business as he had surveyed it since 1934, reported that less than 5% of the public said they were against private ownership, and about 2/3 were inclined to think well of bigness in business. Only the most arrant of optimists, however, would take refuge in these pleasant little circumstances, or even derive much comfort from them, Fortune said. A majority of the people, Mr. Roper also points out, believe that very few businessmen have the good of the nation in mind when they make their important decisions. They think business is too greedy and that it has played a large part in keeping prices too high. They think, therefore, that government should keep a sharp eye on business. And they have been thinking just about that way for 15 years. Business, in other words, enjoys the most tentative and precarious kind of approval. Ironically, Fortune adds, business is spending a great deal more on public relations than ever before. Some 4,000 corporations now support public relations departments and programs, and about 500 independent public relations firms are supported mainly by business. In view of all this, why are not the public relationships of business better than they are? The main reason business isn't rolling in goodwill, according to Fortune, is that about 95% of what comes off under the name of public relations is sheer press-agentry. It gets a company or product noticed, but does not necessarily result in durable good relations with the public. Fortune then gave a definition, a history, and a present analysis of public relations, ending with the warning that either the day of public relations as performance must come or private business must reconcile itself to a steady contracting. American business still has time to meet the challenge of our time. It can offer the people a generous measure of both security and opportunity. It was symptomatic of the mid-20th century that Fortune should see public relations in these broad societal and integrative terms of industrial statesmanship.